Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Verse 15. O Arjuna, noblest amongst men, that person who is not affected by happiness and distress, and remains steady in both, becomes eligible for liberation. In the previous verse, Sri Krishna explained that both the sensations of happiness and distress are fleeting. He now encourages Arjuna to rise above these dualities through discrimination in order to develop this discrimination. We first need to understand that the answers to two important questions. Why do we aspire for happiness? Why doesn't material happiness satisfy us? The answer to the first question is very simple. God is an ocean of infinite bliss, and we souls are his tiny parts. This basically means that we are tiny fragments of an infinite ocean of bliss. Swami Vivekananda would address people by saying, "O ye children of immortal bliss, just as a child is drawn to his or her mother, each part is naturally drawn toward its whole. Similarly, being infinitesimal parts of the ocean of bliss, we souls too are drawn to this bliss. Hence, everything we do in the world is for the sake of happiness. We all may have different views regarding where happiness lies or what form it might take, but all living beings seek nothing apart from it." This answers the first question. Now let's understand the answer to the second question. The soul, being a tiny part of God, is divine in nature, like God himself. Hence, the happiness that the soul seeks is also divine. Such happiness must possess the following three characteristics. It must be infinite in extent. It must be permanent. It must be ever fresh. Such is the happiness of God, which is described as Satchit Anand, or eternal sentient ocean of bliss. However, the happiness we experience from the contact of the senses with their objects is the reverse. It is temporary, finite, and insentient. Thus, the material happiness that we perceive through the body can never satisfy the divine soul. With this discrimination, we must practice to tolerate the perception of material happiness. Similarly, we must tolerate the sensation of material distress. This second aspect is discussed in detail in many future verses, such as 2.48, 5.20, etc. Only then will we rise above these dualities, and the material energy will no longer bind us. With this discrimination, we must practice to tolerate the perception of material happiness. Similarly, we must tolerate the sensation of material distress. This second aspect is discussed in detail in many future verses. Only then will we rise above the dualities and the material energy will no longer bind us. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Verse 15. Yam hi na vyatayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Verse 16. Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata, ubhayorapi drishtonta, stavannayostava darshibhi.
नासतो विद्यते भावो ना भावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः नासतो
Na means no, asita of the temporary, vidyate there is, bhava is, na no, abhava cessation, vidyate is, sata of the eternal, ubhayo of the two, api also, drishta observed, anta conclusion, tu verily, anayo of these, tattva entity, and darshibhihi of the seers. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata, ubhayorapi drishtonta, stavanayostattva darshibhihi. Of the transient there is no endurance, of the eternal there is no cessation. This has verily been observed and concluded by the seers of the truth, after studying the nature of both. According to the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, there are three entities in existence: Bhokta, Bhogyam, Preritaram cha Matva Sarvam Proktam Trividham Brahmametat. Ksharam Pradhanamamritaksharam Haraksharatmana Vishate Deva Eka Sanyuktametatksharamaksharam cha Vyaktavyaktam Bharate Vishvamisha. All these Ved mantras state that these three entities, God, the individual soul, and Maya, are all eternal. Number 1. God is everlasting. Thus he is Sat, eternally existing. Hence, a name for him in the Vedas is Sat Chit Anand, eternal, full of ocean of knowledge, ocean of bliss. Eternal, full of knowledge, ocean of bliss. Number 2. The soul is imperishable, and hence it is Sat. However, the body will cease to exist one day, and hence it is Asat, temporary. The soul is also Sat Chit Anand, but it is also Anu, tiny. Hence the soul is Anu Sat, Anu Chit, and Anu Anand. Number 3. The entity Maya from which the world has been made is eternal, or Sat. However, all material objects we see around us came into existence and will be destroyed with time. Thus, these can all be termed as Asat or temporary. So while the world itself is Asat, it is only the entity Maya that is Sat. When we say that the world is Asat, this should not be confused with Mithya. Asat, temporary, does not mean Mithya, non-existent. Some philosophers claim that the world is Mithya or non-existent. They assert that it is only the ignorance within us that is making us perceive the world, and once we are situated in Brahmajnana, knowledge of the Supreme, the world will cease to exist. However, if this were true, then the world should no longer have remained for the God-realized saints. Since they had destroyed their ignorance, the world should have stopped existing for them. Why then did these saints write books even after attaining the state of God-realization? Where did the paper and pen come from? The fact that Brahmajnanis use the objects of the world proves that the world exists even for them. Besides, even Brahmajnanis need food to nourish their bodies. The Vedic scriptures state Pashvadi Bhishcha Visheshat. Even God-realized saints feels hungry just as animals do and need to eat food. If the world does not exist for them, then how and why should they eat? Further, Taittiriya Upanishad repeatedly informs us that God is all-pervading in the world. So, Kamayata Bahu Syam Praja Ye Yeti Satapo Tapyata Satapas Taptva Idam Sarvamasrijata Yadidam Kim Cha Tatsrishtva Tadevanupravishat Tadanupravishya Satcha Tyaccha Bhavat Niruktam Cha Niruktam Cha Nilayanam Cha Nilayanam Cha Vijnanam Cha Vijnanam Cha Satyam Chandritam Cha Satyamabhavat Yadidam Kim Cha Tatsatyamityachakshate Tadapyesha Shloko Bhavati. This Vedic mantra states that God not only created the world but also permeates every atom of it. If God is truly all-pervading in this world, then how can the world have no existence? To say that the world is mithya is to contradict the fact that God pervades the world. In this verse, Sri Krishna explains that the world does exist, but it is fleeting. Thus he calls it asat, or temporary. He does not call it mithya, or non-existent. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 17. Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati.
अविनाशी तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् विनाशमव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति.
Avinashi, indestructible, tu indeed, that vidhi no, yena by whom, sarvam entire, idam this, tattam pervaded, vinasham destruction, avyayasya of the imperishable, asya of it, nakashchit no one, kartum to cause, arhati is able. That which pervades the entire body, know it to be indestructible. No one can cause the destruction of the imperishable soul. Sri Krishna establishes the relationship between the body and the soul by saying that the soul pervades the body. What does he mean by this? The soul is sentient, i.e., it possesses consciousness. The body is made from insentient matter, devoid of consciousness. However, the soul passes on the quality of consciousness to the body as well, by residing in it. Hence the soul pervades the body by spreading its consciousness everywhere in it. Some raise a question here regarding the location of the soul. The Vedas state that the soul resides in the heart. Hridi yesha atma prashnopanishad. So va esha atma hridi Chandogya Upanishad. The word hridi indicates that the soul is seated in the region of the heart. Yet, consciousness, which is the symptom of the soul, spreads throughout the body. How does this happen? The word hridi indicates that the soul is seated in the region of the heart. Yet consciousness, which is the symptom of the soul, spreads throughout the body. How does this happen? Vedavyas explains this concept as follows. Avirodha chandanavat avirodhash chandanavat Brahma Sutra 2.3.23. Just as applying sandalwood to your forehead cools the entire body, similarly the soul, although residing locally in the heart, infuses its consciousness throughout the body. Again, someone may ask that if consciousness is a characteristic of the soul, then how does it spread into the body? This question has also been answered by Vedavyas. Vyaktireko Gandhavat Brahma Sutra. Fragrance is a quality of the flower, but the garden where the flower grows also becomes fragrant. This means that the flower is able to pass on its fragrant quality to the garden. Likewise, the soul is sentient, and it also makes the dead matter of the body sentient by pervading its consciousness in it. Again, someone may ask that if consciousness is a characteristic of the soul, then how does it spread into the body? This question has also been answered by Vedavyas. Vyaktireko Gandhavat Brahma Sutra 2.3.26. Fragrance is a quality of the flower, but the garden where the flower grows also becomes fragrant. This means that the flower is able to pass on its fragrant quality to the garden. Likewise, the soul is sentient, and it also makes the dead matter of the body sentient by pervading its consciousness in it. Antavanta ime deha nityasukta sharirina anashino prameyasya tasmad yudhyasva bharata.
अन्तवन्त इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्ता शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युध्यक्स्व भारत.
Antavanta, having an end, ime, these, deha, material bodies, nityasya, eternally, ukta, are said, sharirina, of the embodied soul, anashina, indestructible, aprameyasya, immeasurable, tasmat, therefore, yudhyasva, fight, Bharata, descendant of Bharata, Arjun. 2.18. Only the material body is perishable. The embodied soul within is indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharata. The gross body is factually made from mud. It is mud that gets converted to vegetables, fruits, grains, lentils, and grass. Cows graze the grass and produce milk. We humans consume these edibles and they transform into our body. So it is not an exaggeration to say that the body is created from mud. And at the time of death, when the soul departs, the body can have one of these three ends, krimi, vid, or bhasma. Either it is burnt, or in which case it is converted to ashes and becomes mud, or it is buried, in which case insects eat it and transform it into mud. Else it is thrown into the river, in which case the sea creatures make it their fodder and excrete it as waste, which ultimately merges with the mud of the seabed. In this manner, mud undergoes an amazing cycle in the world. It gets transformed into edibles, bodies are made from these edibles, and the bodies return back into the mud of the earth. The Bible states, "For dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return." Genesis 3:19. This phrase refers to the material body. Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, "Within that material body is an eternal, imperishable entity, which is not made of mud. That is the divine soul, the real self." Only the material body is perishable. The embodied soul within is indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata.